On the marriage night time, the groom abruptly took out a knife and cut the bride's ankle, letting the blood drip down onto the white sheets. Then the groom got up and left. Due to the fact, in place of loving every different, the couple now noticed every different as enemies. Henry VII had simply completed the struggle of the Roses and overthrown Richard III, creating the Tudor dynasty. But his position isn't but tightly closed. To assuage the vintage blue blood, Henry needed to marry a princess of York. She used to be Elizabeth of York, eldest daughter of Edward IV and the White Queen. But Lizzie had fallen in love along with her uncle Richard the whilst she used to be a younger woman. And Henry VII, who overthrew him, was once seemed by Lizzie as her enemy. With the antique and new dynasties having changed, Lizzie has no desire, however, to grow to be a political sufferer. Early that morning, a collection of squad dice sent by King Henry arrived at Woodville Manor to take Lizzie, who used to be betrothed to the king, again to London. However, their welcome was once no longer a pleasant one, for Henry had no love for his fiancée, whom he had by no means met. In the end, rumors have been circulating approximately her for a while. The court docket showed no sign of welcoming the future Queen of England. Lizzie and her own family had been housed in a modest cottage. It was no longer until noon the next day that King Henry arrived. No matter Lizzie's beauty, Henry used to be now so repulsed with the aid of her that he began to humiliate her. Lizzie used to be embarrassed, but she knew she could not disobey the Lord's will, so she positioned up with the humiliation and stepped forward to bop. But Henry interrupted her again. Luckily, her mother was capable to interrupt her by announcing that the two princesses could carry out together for the king, which eased the embarrassment a bit. Lizzie reluctantly danced and rolled her eyes. Despite Henry's motive to fire up Hassel, he is still drawn to Lizzie's splendor. And after they by accident checked out each different, he right away looked away. When her performance used to be over, Henry got up and left. Lizzie said again that she did not want to get married in any respect. Her sister seems to be having second ideas. Henry might have preferred to marry an harmless princess. However, the ministers said bluntly that his throne was now not invulnerable and that the residents of York could still regain control of England. Marrying Lizzie was once the sole preference he had. Henry had no desire but to compromise. As a way to tightly close his throne, he dispatched a person to invite Princess Lizzie to fulfill him by myself. Lizzie refused on the grounds that they weren't married, but her mom straight away agreed. Lizzie had to go to dinner, but the two nonetheless did not like every different. Henry accuses Lizzie of being impolite and her beyond relationships of being slutty. And Lizzie doesn't let up and assaults him. Lizzie's phrases surely hurt Henry's emotions. The next second, he dragged her into his room and locked the door in the back of her. He was once ready to possess Lizzie. With the aid of pressure, the lady puts her hand beneath her, dressed to peer if there's any blood. Except seeing a drop of blood, she realizes the gravity of the situation and sits down on the ground. Lizzie concept for a second and then asked her cousin to help her locate some herbs for her tummy pain. However, the cousin who retrieved the herbs was stuck within the act by using her mother. Not long in the past, King Henry raped Lizzie to see if she was once fertile. This absolute confidence reinforced Lizzie's hatred of Henry, and that is why she didn't want to have his child. However, Elizabeth Woodville, the mom of 12 kiddies, didn't want to lose that life. The mother stated that despite the fact that Lizzie did not have the right to pick out happiness, the infant in her womb ought to carry back the York family. These phrases made Lizzie hesitate. Soon after, the Queen Mom, Margaret Beaufort, approached Lizzie to talk to her as a pal. Margaret Beaufort said that Lizzie's toddler was once a mix of Lancaster and York blood, and that she would be the peacemaker who could give up the cousins' feud. Lizzie listened to the arguments and struggled to decide. She wore the dress she'd selected herself. Margaret had selected humble and penitent as her motto for Lizzie. On January 18, 1486, Henry VII married Elizabeth of York, daughter of Edward IV in Westminster Abbey. On their wedding ceremony night, Henry reduced Lizzie's ankle for blood. From that day on, Lizzie commenced her hidden journey that allows you to create the image of a model couple. Lizzie practiced smiling each day and pretended to be glad in front of everyone. Henry wanted to keep kissing within the ambiguous environment, however, Lizzie all of a sudden stopped. The newlyweds are also embarking on an 8-week nationwide tour for the whole United States to witness their happiness. And Mother Elizabeth Woodville thinks this is their danger. She wanted to apply the tour as an possibility to make touch with former loyalists of the residents of York, because her youngest son, Richard, continues to be alive thanks to her backroom dealings, the only ultimate heir to Edward IV. Elizabeth of Rout wants to reclaim the throne for her son. So Lizzie intentionally requested Henry approximately the route of the tour. Knowing that the king would bypass York, Lizzie tried to initiate him. On account of Lizzie's provocation, Henry straight away changed his itinerary and headed to York next. However, when the Queen Mother realized that Lizzie was once urging him to head, she without delay found out that she used to be plotting with Elizabeth Woodville. So the Queen Mother saved Lizzie in London, below the pretext of shielding the baby. Lizzie's mother used to be additionally imprisoned. But even except the mother and daughter, it was now not secure for Henry to journey to York. An assassin who does not recognize Henry as the rightful king has all started to assassinate him inside the streets. The Queen is robbing the king's vault, ordering the soldiers to pressure the locks off the doors. She then removed a large amount of gold cash from the vault. It turns out that a serious epidemic has broken out inside the city. The king, who was once on excursion, used to be blocked from the breaking information via his controlling mother. People had been demise of the disease each day. However, the Queen Mom, Margaret Beaufort, felt that the king's parade was once the maximum essential issue in the meantime. As a result, the king's indifference brought about outrage or even an assassination strive on the king in the road. Despite the fact that Henry was once accompanied via numerous guards, he was once stabbed inside the arm. He had to panic and hide within the church. Lizzie, who were locked as much as nurse her infant, had simply discovered of the spread of the epidemic. She right now rushed to the king's treasury and violently unlocked it to divert budget to shop the people in dire straits. The Chancellor of the Exchequer accused Lizzie of robbery. Lizzie then threatens to apply the toddler to get the minister to tell her where her mother is being held. But when Lizzie observed her mother, she stated, the disease had come on the proper time. Human beings will blame Henry for bringing the plague to England, but all Lizzie wants to do is store greater lives. As soon as things had settled down a piece, Henry started out for London. On his method lower back, he used to be blocked with the aid of a crowd of people. Henry thought they have been rebels. However, the people fell to their knees. While Henry arrived on the palace, the Chancellor of the Exchequer stated Lizzie's theft of the vault. The Queen Mom entreated Henry to punish Lizzie severely. Lizzie used to be then introduced before Henry. She offered to take the blame for commencing the vault, but she could not stand by